Hi, I'm Paul. I'm the gardener at Community Alliance Trust here in Craigmillar. I just want to give you a little tour of the garden at Bristo Memorial Church that we've been looking after for a couple of years. This was previously all lawn that the church management were having a hard time maintaining, and so we agreed with them that we would grow vegetables here for the benefit of the local community. So this is the front garden where in 2018 Ian, who was the community gardener here at the time, working with Dom, who I'm still working with at the White House, set up some small edged beds, really as an extension to the garden at the White House, so supplying the community cafe. Start of last year, 2019, we removed the edging from the beds and built the compost bays you can see at the end, and started reorganising the garden as like 4 foot wide raised beds. Not raised in the sense that they're kind of edged with timber, but we've basically stripped off the turf from the paths, and that's gone into to build up the beds, slightly above ground level. So you can see the general effect. So we have permanent beds, meaning you don't walk on the ground that you're cultivating on, and all the compost and all the soil nutrients go into the bed itself. And the width of the beds is like enough. Well, it's narrow enough that you can easily reach across to weed and look after your plants. So it's not the only system there, but it works well enough. So the idea of this Craigmillar Growers project is everybody works together on effectively a small community farm, and shares the produce. So anybody can come along and chip in, do a bit of sowing, weeding, planting, digging, and take a share of whatever's in season. And when we have a surplus of something, we can share it with the food bank in the church hall, and various other good causes in the area. So it's a model that we're hoping will catch on, and that we can replicate in other parts of Edinburgh that the Community Alliance Trust is working in. Now this year we're properly organised with rotation, and divided the garden into 6 sections of approximately equal size. So one of those is occupied with alliums, so all the onion family. The next one is potatoes, and the next one is the legumes, so beans and peas. That's what we've got round this side this year. And in the back garden, which I'll show you in a minute, we have the cucurbits, so squashes and courgettes and cucumbers, hopefully. So that's the cucurbits. Then we've got the roots, so parsnips, beetroot, carrots, and finally the brassicas, so the cabbage family, all the Brussels sprouts, cabbages, kale, turnips, kohlrabi, etc. So those six groups of plants will move around the garden in successive years. So they'll spend the So the onions, for instance, will go into another couple of beds round the back next year, and so they follow each other on, and this is to avoid build up of pests and diseases. So first off, in the onion beds, we've got some autumn planted onion sets, which are coming on well. Garlic, which is not looking quite so happy. I'm not quite sure why, but we'll give it a chance. And then these rather more densely sprouting leaves, that is shallots. So they produce multiple bulbs from one shallot that you can replant the following year, and then it's back to onions all the way to the end. So we'll have no shortage of onions. Also growing some onions from seed. Yeah, it really is an experiment, 'cause I've never done that before. And the only thing is to know quite where to put them. So we might have some to share. The two beds here at the end are going to be, this bed here is going to be for leeks. We've been raising leeks in pots back at the White House, and I was also planning to create a new bed alongside here, which I'm currently doing to sort of demonstrate the technique of digging over some lawn. So that's work in progress there. And so here, but in the meantime, here we've got all this. We've got this Asturian tree cabbage, which is a fantastic perennial cabbage. So although it's in the onions bed, we're going to keep it here for at least a couple of years, because it's such a lovely plant. And you can see at this time of year, it's producing lots of really tasty broccoli-like shoots, which are delicious, steamed. Yum. So moving on, the next two beds along are dedicated to potatoes, which you can see just starting to show themselves. And we've also sown a catch crop of radishes along the middle here. You might just be able to make them out. See these little leaves here. So they will hopefully be ready to pick before they get completely overwhelmed and shaded out by the potatoes. So this bed is also potatoes, and we're doing the same catch cropping thing with some lettuces that were grown in modules and planted out just today. And we've still got some Swiss chard and rhubarb chard growing here. It's all starting to go to seed. So you can see the sort of central flowering shoot is starting to come up. But there's still plenty of good picking on those. Right, and finally these two beds next to the railings are going to be peas and beans. So got a decent crop of broad beans coming up. A few gaps to fill, but not many. And in the corner here, last was it November or December, we planted a plum tree, Victoria plum. So top pruned it to give it its its initial shape, and staked it with the remains of the church's Christmas tree, which has worked a treat. And a bicycle in a tube, so all useful stuff. So moving on, past the broccoli, more of that later. That'll come out soon to make room for more peas. So the peas we've got at the moment, doing well. We've put in some pea sticks for them to climb up. These were sown in modules back in the polytunnel at the White House and planted out. But now I think we're getting towards the time of year when we can just sow them direct. So we'll sow a lot over the next week or so. This bed will be for a variety of French beans and runner beans. They're kind of being sown at the moment. But yeah, in the meantime, we've got some more radishes here. So they're doing all right. Just been thinned and put some mesh on them just to stop any insects and birds and things from getting too interested. So let's go and take a look at the back garden. So here we are. Again, this area was just down to lawn until kind of last summer, really, and started out digging 3 beds here at this end in sort of starting in June, really, and planted winter brassicas and like winter radishes, turnips, and oriental greens of various sorts, like mustard greens and mizuna, and they did well. And the broccoli in particular has been a real treat. Still getting a fantastic harvest off it, and chicory, bit of a lesser known vegetable, but very easy to grow. It's got a nice bitter taste. If you like that sort of thing, I've really got a taste for it. So yeah. After that, the next step was really digging over this strip at the end here for a forest garden, if it's not too pretentious to call it that. So we've planted 3 apple trees, which you can see just down the middle, putting out their first blossom. Again, we planted these as 1-year-old maiden whips, staked them, given them a top prune, and they're getting established now. It's nice to see. And along the wall, we put in some canes of summer fruiting raspberries. So the forest garden idea is, you have an overstory of tree crops and then edible plants as the ground cover. So here we've got strawberries, and further on some rhubarb, and also mixing in some plants that are good for pollinators and wildlife. So we've got lupins and chamomile, I think, and nasturtiums, and at the end some sage bushes and a rosemary plant in the corner. And this is I think a tayberry, which is going to climb up along the fence. So that's like a raspberry blackberry hybrid. And here we've got another forest garden patch in the making, with a gooseberry bush and a saskatoon, which is a lesser known fruiting American shrub. Don't ask me what it tastes like, because I've never tried it. I'm looking forward to finding out. And loganberry, which is another of these hybrid berries. So this year this bed is going to be for our winter brassicas, and in the meantime we're using it as a seed bed for all the brassicas that we're going to plant out later in the year. So you can see the various cabbages and sprouts just germinating there, and keeping them covered over, just really to keep things like flea beetles away from them that would nibble the leaves. So once the broccoli comes out, that's going to be roots like carrots and beetroot. We'll have some squashes and courgettes in this bed, and for the time being got some lettuces. So again, this is catch cropping. The lettuces will do fine until they start getting shaded out by the squashes. And here we're back to another bed of brassicas, but this will be sort of quick growing summer brassicas. Like what you got here is some summer turnips, which are just germinating. You can see under the netting. And then further along, a bed of parsnips and Hamburg parsley, which is a form of parsley where you can eat the roots, kind of like turnips. And so, yeah, just really keeping carrot fly off with all this netting. Parsnips can be a bit tricky to germinate. They just take a long time. They're not very reliable to germinate. And this is another bed which will be roots. In this case, beetroot. Covered the beetroot at this end, which is growing from seed, to keep birds off, because they're terrible for eating the there you can just see the little beetroots coming up. They tend to get nibbled by sparrows and things early on. And at the other end of the bed, got some carrots germinating under fleece. In this case, what we're really concerned about is carrot fly, which can really devastate a crop of carrots. And so the rest of the beds here, kind of work in progress. You can see the technique here. These should really, the turf really should be buried upside down rather than this, but I can turn it over. So basically just dig a trench, put the turf in, grass side side down, and then bury it with the underlying soil. And and this end, the sort of corner here, we're gonna develop as another little forest garden patch, with some autumn fruiting raspberries, and at the end here a white currant, and on the bank at the end here we've got a red currant and gooseberry, and two black currants. And I've just stripped off the grass from this bank and sowed it with a wildflower mix for pollinators. So we want to do quite a bit of this in odd corners. Just so put some plants in here that will be of benefit to wildlife. So I'm being stalked by a curious cat. It won't come near to me, but it's not in the least camera shy. So that's Bristo in its current state. If you're interested in finding out more, maybe doing a bit of gardening at some point, or coming along and taking a share of tasty fresh veggies, get in touch. Send me an email or a message through the Facebook page, and enjoy the lovely spring weather.